My boyfriend got into a car accident and was unconscious for 2 days. I deliberately teased him and told him he had been unconscious for 2 years. Seeing that he believed it, I was laughing wildly inside. I was just about to tell him the truth when I heard him muttering to himself. It's already been 2 years. I wonder how Elena is doing now. My smile froze. Elena was not me. She was his ex-girlfriend. They had already broken up 7 years ago. Chapter 1. After my boyfriend got into a car accident, I took care of him without sleeping or resting for 2 days and 2 nights. The moment he woke up, I suddenly remembered a funny video I had watched recently, so I held my boyfriend's hand and wiped away a tear affectionately. Joel, you finally woke up. Do you know that you've already been unconscious for 2 years? Under the effect of the medication, Joel's reactions were a little slow. He asked me in disbelief, "How is that possible?" I held back my laughter, took out the phone whose time I had adjusted, and let Joel look at the June 16th, 2026 displayed on it. I'm not lying to you. It's already been 2 years since your car accident. Look, haven't I become much more haggard? To take care of Joel, I had not closed my eyes for 20 hours. Right now, I looked utterly exhausted. Even with dark circles under my eyes, I probably did look as if I had aged 2 years. Joel seemed to really believe it. His eyes reddened, and he looked at me as he said hoarsely, "Eva, thank you for not abandoning me. You must have had such a hard time these past 2 years. It's all my fault. I dragged you down." Originally, I had only wanted to tease Joel a little, but when he said that, I immediately regretted it. I was just about to tell him it was a joke when the nurse called me from outside the door. "Joel's family member, come over and handle the paperwork." I tucked the blanket around Joel and kissed him lightly on the face. "You lie here first. I'll be right back." Half a minute later, I had finished handling the matter. Just as I was about to push the door open and come in, I heard Joel murmuring to himself inside the ward. "Eva really loves me. How could she love me this much?" His tone was a rare kind of hoarse tenderness. My face heated, and my heart started pounding wildly. I stood quietly by the door, wanting to hear what else Joel might say. Before the car accident, he had gone with a friend to look at diamond rings. Perhaps this accident would prompt him to propose to me. But Joel's next sentence was, "It's been 2 years. I wonder how Elena is doing now." In an instant, the smile froze on my face. Blood rushed to my head, making my ears roar. Elena was not me. She was Joel's ex-girlfriend. They had already broken up 7 years ago. I thought Joel had already let go of his first love, which was why he chose to be with me. But I never imagined, nor could I possibly have imagined, that Joel, mistakenly believing he had been unconscious for 2 years, would wake up and, in the first moment, think about whether his ex-girlfriend had been doing well recently. The hand I used to support myself against the doorframe trembled lightly. I really wanted to walk into the ward and question Joel to his face. "Why are you still thinking about her? If you still cannot forget her, then what does my 4 years of companionship with you even count for?" But a voice calling from behind brought me back to my senses. It was several of Joel's friends who had come to visit him. They greeted me. "Eva, we heard Joel woke up, so we came to see him." The girl walking at the very back was Joel's half-sister, Lily. That girl had never liked me. At this moment, she stopped in front of me and said with a smile that was not quite a smile, "Eva, I heard my brother got into the car accident because he was buying you a midnight snack. If you ask me, we really should eat less at night. It helps keep the figure." Chapter 2. How could I possibly fail to hear the sarcasm in Lily's words? But I did not refute her, because Joel had indeed gotten into the accident because of me. That day, I had merely casually mentioned to him that I wanted to eat grilled skewers from a certain place. To give me a surprise, Joel went out alone to buy them. Up to this point, it was still just a small surprise between lovers, but on the way to deliver the midnight snack to me, he encountered a drunk driver. When I heard the news that something had happened to Joel, my entire body went numb. For these 2 days, I had stayed by his side without even changing my clothes, praying to every god and Buddha countless times in my heart. Thankfully, he was not seriously hurt. Otherwise, I would never be able to let it go for the rest of my life. Thinking of this, I felt another wave of agitation and confusion. Joel clearly loved me very much. His heart was clearly full of me. How could he possibly spare any room to worry about whether his ex-girlfriend was doing well? Lily cast me a meaningful look, then walked into the ward. Only I was left standing there, dazed and lost, in the empty hospital corridor. At that moment, it was as if the entire world had left me behind. Only after a long time did I gradually regain my senses. Just then, bursts of laughter came from inside the ward. One of Joel's friends laughed while explaining. "What, 2 years? Eva was just joking with you. You only injured your head and slept for 2 days. It wasn't 2 years at all." It seemed that my clumsy lie had very quickly been exposed. Originally, I had looked forward to observing Joel's reaction, but now I was no longer in the mood for anything. I walked numbly into the ward and apologized to Joel. "I'm sorry, I was teasing you. I didn't expect you to really believe it." The end of my sentence already carried a hint of tears. Joel noticed it almost immediately. He pulled me into his arms, stroked my hair, and said with a smile, "Good thing it was only 2 days. If you had really worked so hard taking care of me for 2 years, how heartbroken would I be?" His voice was both helpless and indulgent, as if he truly held me in the palm of his hand. Leaning in Joel's arms and hearing his steady heartbeat, my nose suddenly stung, and I nearly burst into tears in front of everyone. I could not believe that someone who loved me this much could still be thinking about his ex-girlfriend. But that dreamlike confession from Joel, could it really have been my hallucination? Chapter 3. Joel's various test results had already stabilized, but he still needed to stay in the hospital for 1 more day. That night, he insisted that I did not need to stay with him. He said, "Eva, you've been exhausted these past few days. Go home and rest." I really did need rest, so I gave a few instructions to the friend who was helping keep watch by his bedside, then returned to my own home. However, after lying in bed for half an hour, I still felt no sleepiness at all. I could only call my best friend Patricia with eyes reddened from staying up, and carefully ask her whether she still thought of her first love, whom she had broken up with many years ago. That so-called elite man had cheated on her many times during their relationship, hurting Patricia deeply. In my view, she should have stopped thinking about him long ago. But to my surprise, Patricia answered, "Of course I do, once every 10 days or half a month." This shock was no small matter. I could not even care about Joel anymore and grabbed onto my best friend to question her. "Why? You're not allowed to think about him anymore. Didn't you tell me long ago that you don't love him anymore?" Patricia said without hesitation. "Of course I don't love him anymore. But the thing is, I'm petty. If that deadbeat scumbag could see that I now have men when I want men, money when I want money, and houses when I want houses, wouldn't that feel even better? Eva, there's a kind of happiness called your ex not living as well as you." Her words left me both amused and exasperated. Although Patricia's words were blunt, the truth contained in them was very clear. Clear-headed people could also reminisce about the past, but that was merely to let themselves understand that they were happier in the present. Before Joel mentioned Elena, he had indeed first mentioned that I loved him. Then I should not keep holding it against him. The heart that had been hanging in the air finally fell back down. After hanging up the phone, I slept deeply. When I woke up, it was already noon the next day. After waking up, there were already 99 plus unread messages in the WeChat group. This was the small group created by Joel's friends. After we started dating, he had also added me into it. Usually, people in the group would joke around and chat. But now, the reason the group was so lively was because of the latest unread message. "Elena is returning to the country tomorrow. Let's hold a welcome dinner for her." I let out a long breath. Suddenly, I felt the absurdity of what you fear is what comes. The ex-girlfriend who had been abroad for many years had suddenly returned. I was almost urgently desperate to know what Joel was feeling at this moment. However, among those 99 plus messages, Joel had not said a single word. Instead, a few hours earlier, he had sent me several voice messages privately. "Eva, I've already been discharged from the hospital. I heard that these past 2 days, you took care of me and barely closed your eyes. Don't rush to come see me. Get enough rest first." So I tossed my phone aside and lay back down. Actually, I knew a lot about Joel and his ex, but he had always been gentle and considerate, giving me more than enough sense of security. So I had never asked foolish questions like, "Do you still like her?" Elena was a rich, beautiful young lady, while Joel was a poor student. The two met and fell in love inside the ivory tower. Their romance was both dreamy and sweet. Until after graduation, Elena went abroad to study, while Joel insisted on staying in the country. Because of this, the two broke up peacefully, but this incident seemed to have still affected Joel. He gave up continuing his studies and started a business instead. I was the first employee he recruited. Later, I became his best partner. Every advertisement slogan of the company was finalized after our discussions. Every client was negotiated by the two of us together. Our office moved all the way from an urban village to the CBD. On the day we received series of funding, Joel held my hand, filled with emotion. "Eva, thank you. Without you, there would be no me today." We had helped each other through hardship and supported one another, both emotionally and rationally. Joel should not still be thinking about Elena, but that sentence, "Is she doing well?" continued to circle in my mind. It left me vaguely uneasy. I could almost not control myself from guessing, in the 4 years Joel and I had walked side by side, exactly how many times had he thought back to his ex-girlfriend? Chapter 4. The welcome dinner for Elena was scheduled for tonight. After being mentioned several times in the group, Joel finally replied that he would bring his girlfriend along. It was almost time to leave, but I sat in front of the vanity mirror, thinking left and right, unable to decide what clothes I should wear. Just as I was troubled, there was a knock at the door. Joel had come to my home to pick me up. There was still gauze stuck to his forehead, but his complexion looked pretty good overall. He personally put an elegant and exquisite diamond necklace on me. I passed by the counter and thought it suited my girlfriend very well, so I bought it. Looking left and right in the mirror, he narrowed his eyes and smiled. "It really does look good. Actually, the design of this necklace was overly extravagant and not the style I liked. But the fact that he had put in this thought was already enough. Perhaps choosing jewelry for a woman was never his strong suit to begin with." I touched the cold, hard stones and revealed a faint smile. "Thank you." Although I was unwilling to admit it, I knew that this gift had eased the uneasiness in my heart very well. It let me know that Joel still valued me. We soon arrived at the restaurant. It was a private restaurant with a beautiful environment. Although he was about to see the ex he had not met for many years, there was not the slightest excitement, curiosity, or nervousness on Joel's face. He talked and laughed cheerfully with his old classmates, everyone enjoying themselves. He was still that same suited, successful-looking man, full of satisfaction. I also chatted with several ladies present about recent career developments. Just as everyone in the private room was smiling and laughing, the door was pushed open. A slim girl stood behind the door, smiling as she looked at us. She wore a plain white long dress, her black hair falling like a waterfall. She wore only light makeup, and there was not the slightest bit of jewelry on her entire body. Only then did I realize that even the old saying beauty lies in the bones, not the skin, was wrong. A true beauty was beautiful in bearing. Elena smiled gracefully just like that and said, "Long time no see." Of course, I had secretly looked at Elena's photos before. Back in college, her style had always been charming and flamboyant, even her eyes revealing a stubborn, fearless sense of self. But 7 years later, she had become a picture of natural, unadorned purity. For a moment, I felt dazed, thinking that my guesses about her might have been wrong. But when I looked around and saw the shocked expressions on everyone's faces, I finally knew that her transformation had also greatly surprised all the old friends present. Everyone exchanged greetings with Elena, saying she had become more and more beautiful. Lily's compliments were the most thorough. While praising Elena from head to toe, she glanced at me, as if saying, "Learn from this." Lily had never particularly liked me, because I had rejected her several times from joining the company Joel and I ran, using insufficient ability as the reason. It seemed that in her eyes, as long as she flattered Elena, she could disgust me. But when she saw her brother's behavior, her own expression became ugly again. Everyone present greeted Elena and chatted about one another's recent lives, except Joel, because he was entirely focused on taking care of me. One moment, he put food into my bowl. The next, he poured me a drink. He had completely forgotten that he himself was the patient who had just been discharged from the hospital. He even personally peeled several shrimp and placed them on my plate. "If you want more, just tell me. I'll peel them for you so your fingers don't get dirty." Joel was so considerate. It was practically like he was showing off our love in front of everyone. Clearly, Elena noticed it too, with a smiling expression. She nodded toward Joel in greeting. "Joel, how have you been recently? What happened to the injury on your forehead?" Chapter 5. Joel's hand, which was holding his chopsticks, paused for a moment, but very quickly, he smiled too. I got into a minor car accident. Nothing serious." When he said this, he did not look at Elena's expression. Instead, he took my hand and gently shook it twice, then looked at everyone with a smile. "Since we're all here, I might as well take this chance to share some good news. I plan to marry Eva at the end of the year." Joel's voice was steady and relaxed. Even the end of his sentence carried a hint of a smile. My heartbeat involuntarily sped up by one beat. Marriage. This was not the first time Joel had mentioned marriage to me, but this was the first time he had set a deadline. Counting from now, there were only 5 months left until the end of the year. Naturally, I looked forward to spending the rest of my life with Joel, but why did he take the initiative to mention marriage to Elena? And he had set the time so arbitrarily, without even discussing it with me. There was a special expression on Joel's face, as if he were anticipating Elena's reaction. If she blessed him, he would be happy, but if she did not bless him, he would be even happier. For a moment, the person who was getting married was me, and the person feeling flustered was also me. But perhaps I was being too sensitive again, because both of them stood up and politely clinked glasses. Elena smiled and said, "Congratulations. Maybe I'll even get to attend your wedding banquet. I'll definitely prepare a big red envelope myself." Joel replied, "It would be my honor." The atmosphere was quite harmonious. Everyone also stood up to clink glasses with me and celebrate. For a while, the room was filled with congratulations, but Lily became restless again. She asked, "Elena, can you stay in the country until the end of the year this time? Won't you have classes at school? Your studies are important. You don't have to attend my cousin's wedding." Elena's smile remained unchanged. "It's like this. I applied for a leave of absence. Something happened in my family, so I came back to help." That sentence was like a thunderclap. For a moment, everyone in the room fell silent. Only after a few seconds did someone pick up the conversation. "Elena, some time ago I heard that something happened to your family's factory. I thought it was just a rumor. How is it now? I imagine it should be fine, right?" There was already a hint of prying curiosity in the person's tone. Everyone present was a friend of Joel and Elena from university, and now all of them had achieved success in their careers. But Elena remained so open and poised as she met everyone's gaze. "The situation at home really isn't optimistic. Some time ago, my father's investment failed, and there were also some problems with the reform of the production line, which caused serious inventory backlog. That's why I came back. I want to work with my family to find ways to raise funds and find sales channels." At this point, she calmly stood up, raised her glass, and smiled at everyone present. "I'll drink a toast to all of you first. If any of you have suitable resources, please help introduce them to me. I would be deeply grateful." Chapter 6. When I had just started dating Joel, I heard quite a few whispers. How did he end up dating this girl? This Eva has no family background, no impressive education, no looks. Joel's standards have dropped by more than just a little. At that time, I had felt rather unconvinced. But after secretly looking up Elena's information, even I fell silent. Joel's friends were not wrong. Even I had not expected Joel to have an ex with such a prominent family background. To me, Elena seemed like someone born living on the moon, visible, yet unreachable. But I never could have imagined that the high and untouchable moon would one day fall from the clouds, and Elena would face it with such a calm and frank attitude. Meeting old friends again. There was not the slightest awkwardness or embarrassment on her face after going from rich to poor. Instead, she openly admitted her predicament and did not avoid the fact that she needed help at all. If I put myself in her shoes, I might not be willing to let friends see me in a fallen, miserable state. But she was so neither humble nor arrogant, so calm and unshaken. Suddenly, I felt 3 points more admiration for her. But when I turned back to look at Joel beside me, I fell silent again. On the surface, Joel's face showed no extra expression, but he was gripping that porcelain white wine cup tightly, his knuckles turning pale. the wine inside trembling slightly. However, he quickly came back to his senses and loosened his hand. Of course, Joel stood up, holding his glass, and lightly tapped it against the table. We're friends. After all, it's only right to watch out for and help each other. His words were proper and sincere. Driven by him, everyone began patting their chests, talking all at once. If we can help, we definitely will. My relative happens to work in this industry. I'll ask him whether there are any sales channels. It rather had the meaning of when everyone gathers firewood. The flames rise high. Elena's eyes became tinged with tears, and she repeatedly toasted the friends present. It seemed that she and Joel truly had already forgotten each other and gone their separate ways. When the banquet ended that night, everyone had drunk quite a bit. Joel was drunk too. I had no choice but to support him as we went to the car. However, just after sitting down, I realized that I had left my phone in the private room, so I had to go back to get it. As I passed by the restroom, I heard people chatting. It was two of Joel's college classmates. One of them laughed and said, "Back when they had just broken up, Joel drank with us." He patted his chest all heroically and said that one day he would definitely make a name for himself and make her regret it. "Tell me, do you think Elena regrets it now?" The other replied, "How could she not regret it? The poor boy she looked down on back then has now turned himself around into an elite talent, and she's the one who's become a debt-ridden pauper." There was sympathy in the voice, but even more than that, there was schadenfreude. A trace of disgust could not help rising in my heart. Of course I knew what it felt like to be looked down on and mocked. When I was little, the big iron gate of my house was splashed with red paint by creditors, and the neighbors mocked us just like this. When I got a little older, because my grades were good and I received financial aid as a poor student, my classmates looked down on me just like this. Later still, when I took my unimpressive second-tier university diploma to look for jobs, the HR staff at big companies rejected me just like this. I hated most of all those people who chewed over others' suffering behind their backs. But just before I was about to turn and leave, I heard one of them laugh and say, "The necklace Eva was wearing is from brand C. I saw it on the official website before. It costs $130,000. I wonder what Elena felt when she saw it." Right, I remember back then. She only wore jewelry from brand C. TSK. She probably can't afford it now, right? Chapter 7. I suddenly shivered. The necklace Joel had bought for me to wear was from Elena's former favorite brand. Was this a coincidence? Or had Joel deliberately done it for Elena to see from the very beginning? Otherwise, why did he skip over my favorite pearls and agate, yet buy diamonds that I rarely wore? Thinking of the second possibility, my mind grew dizzy. I stood there at a loss. The bright and gorgeous necklace around my neck suddenly seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds, pressing down on me until even breathing became difficult. I knew I could not keep enduring this anymore. What exactly was Joel thinking in his heart? I had to ask clearly. I returned to the car in a daze. Joel, seeming both drunk and not drunk, lifted his eyelashes and stared at me. "Why were you gone for so long?" I stared at Joel without blinking and said, "We need to talk." Joel trembled, and his face immediately became serious. He seemed to want to explain something, but I stopped him. "Just now, near the restroom, I heard your friend say that the jewelry you gave me is from the brand Elena used to love most." Joel, out of hundreds or thousands of jewelry brands, you chose not to buy any of them, but specifically bought the brand she liked. You remember her preferences so clearly. Are you still in love with her? If you still love her, please tell me directly, and tell her directly too. Don't play these ambiguous little games. There was a smile on my face, but my gaze was sharp as a blade. Joel trembled. He immediately held my wrist and said anxiously, "How could that be? I stopped loving her ages ago. I'm a man. How could I remember jewelry brands? Of course I just bought it because it looked pleasing to the eye. Buying the brand she liked was just a coincidence." I listened as Joel defended himself. The more sincere his words were, the more unease grew in my heart. Only after a long while did I let out a long sigh, as if greatly relieved, and ask him, "Joel, do you dare swear that you have never thought of Elena?" The hand Joel had clasped with mine trembled almost imperceptibly, but he swore solemnly, "Never." I looked at Joel, and my heart slowly sank. Never? A lie. That day in the hospital, He had clearly been murmuring about whether Elena was doing well. I had thought 7 years was a very long time, long enough for him to forget her. But had he truly forgotten her? An indescribable sourness filled my chest. At this moment, I suddenly felt an unprecedented exhaustion. I said softly, "I understand." Then I calmly drove away from the restaurant. The night wind blew in, and my arm could not help trembling lightly. Maybe it was from the cold. Maybe it was because I was afraid of losing him while waiting at a red light. I turned back to look at Joel in the passenger seat. He had already fallen asleep. Was she really not in his dreams? But when my gaze fell on the wound on Joel's forehead, tears welled up in my eyes again. That was the mark left by the car accident he had gotten into while buying me a midnight snack. Just because I mentioned it casually, he had been willing to spend 2 hours preparing a surprise for me. His heart was full of me. Then could there still be room in his heart for a second person? Chapter 8. I went to drink and talk with my best friend, weighed down by worries. However, as soon as I said, "It feels like he doesn't love me," Patricia widened her eyes, her face full of disbelief. "Eva, how about we look at this a little more carefully? Although I've met scumbags before, Joel really isn't one." Indeed, Joel was an impeccable top-tier boyfriend, but his ex-girlfriend had returned to the country. For a moment, thousands of words clogged my chest, yet I could not say a single one. I bit my lip, my eyes confused. But why did Joel say in front of his ex-girlfriend that he was going to marry me this year? Marriage is between him and me. He didn't discuss it with me, yet said it in front of her. Isn't that really just to attract her attention? Emotion burned through my limbs and bones, and I almost shouted, "Do we need her approval first before we get married?" But Patricia only shook her head, hesitating to speak. After quite a while, she finally confessed, "Forget it. I'm going to tell you a secret. Joel told me to keep it confidential, but if I don't tell you now, you'll keep overthinking and suspecting everything. Eva, Joel has already arranged to propose to you next week on your birthday. When he said he was going to marry you, that was simply the truth. As for his ex-girlfriend, just treat her like a random passerby." My sob caught in my throat. Really? Why don't I quite believe it? To convince me, Patricia took out a video. This was something she had filmed when she went to help discuss the proposal details. In the video, the staff from the proposal planning company was asking Joel what the woman's preferences were. Joel spoke fluently and confidently, talking for 1 or 2 minutes without stumbling. Even the planner had to interrupt him, smiling as they said, "Sir, you're the person I've met who remembers his girlfriend's preferences the best. Many people really don't know anything when asked." Joel nodded, his face full of gentle indulgence. "Yes, meeting her is the luckiest thing in my life." Chapter 9. The video ended. I opened my mouth, wanting to say something, but my heart was beating like a drum, and I could not say a single word, partly because of Joel's deep love, and partly because I felt guilty for doubting him. Perhaps he had hidden it from me only to prevent me from overthinking. I truly should have a little more confidence. Eva was no longer that timid little girl who did not understand anything. She should be worthy of Joel's love. In Patricia's arms, I cried until I could hardly speak, and her early spoiler eventually came true. A few days later, it was my 26th birthday. At the party, Joel proposed to me, high profile and romantic. From the wedding ring to the venue arrangement, from the background music to the vows he spoke, every detail was flawless, and every detail referred to my preferences. I watched the man in a suit kneel on one knee in front of me and gaze at me affectionately. "Marry me, Eva." The hotel lights fell on the corners of his raised lips. I tried hard to steady my breathing, but tears fell uncontrollably. Every little moment from our 4 years together swept through my heart. There had been sweetness and bitterness, but more than anything, there was emotion. With tears in my eyes, I said, "Yes." We embraced and kissed amid everyone's applause. I thought that for the next 10 years, 20 years, even 50 years, I would remember the flutter in my heart at that moment. Then I would spend a peaceful and happy life with him. Everything was perfect. So perfect it did not seem like something I could have. But this beautiful dream finally had a day when I woke from it. A few weeks later, I suddenly realized that one of my long-term clients had not placed an order with me for a very long time. I called to ask whether there was any problem, but the client was very confused. Your boss said this production line was going to be stopped, so he introduced me to a new supplier. I've already placed an order with the new factory. In that instant, I covered the receiver, breathing heavily, my chest rising and falling violently, but I still forced a smile. Oh, then would it be convenient for you to tell me which supplier it is? Actually, even without verifying, I had already guessed it. That company was under Elena's name, but after seeing the result with certainty, my heart still felt as if it had been twisted. Because of the pain, my mind went blank for a moment. Only after quite a while did I recover. The colleague beside me had already called me several times. Eva, Joel isn't here. We can't handle this client. Could you help? I answered yes. Chapter 10. After handling all the daily work, I finally found time to go look for Joel. At this moment, anger, frustration, and grievance uncontrollably poured into my chest. Why? Why did he take a client from my hands? Elena had been far across the ocean these past few years. I was the one who had stayed beside Joel, day and night. After going through so much, had my weight in his heart still not surpassed hers? He took my things to please her. Where did that leave me? But faced with my questioning, he only rubbed his brow helplessly. Elena urgently needs to recover funds. She is an old friend of mine. Her matters are my matters. He said it with utmost sincerity, but I kept shaking my head. Joel, Elena and I have only met once. Since when does meeting once make someone a friend? Even if she is a friend. This client was negotiated by me. You used my things to do someone a favor. Do you really think I won't be angry? Joel frowned slightly. He seemed very afraid of me getting angry. Only after a long while did he say, Eva, you have to be considerate of me. In the first year after I founded the company, Elena lent me a sum of money, a full $300,000. If I hadn't gotten that money in time, my company would have gone under long ago, and it was precisely because I got that money that I paid the rent and hired you as my helper. She has the kind of friendship with me where she helped me in my hour of need. Now I'm merely returning the favor. You only lost one client. Eva, let's help her think of a way to get through this difficult time together. Clients can still be negotiated again in the future. The more Joel tried to persuade me, the more furious I became. If you want to repay her kindness, you can give her your own clients. Why do you have to take away my client? What does Elena's difficult time have to do with me? Did I cause her suffering? My clients were won by me, city by city, through wind and rain, with no hesitation. She can also go out and run through wind and rain. If I can endure hardship, why can't she? Why is it that just because she cries a few times to you, you use my hard work to make a wedding dress for her? After working with Joel for many years, it was not that we had never had disputes, but back then, we had always calmly exchanged opinions. Moreover, we had always been working toward a common goal. But at this moment, between me and him, an Elena had been inserted. Even if I wanted to be considerate of Joel, I still had anger in me. Joel was clearly also angered by my disobedience. His face flushed red, and the words slipped out. How can she compare to you? She has never suffered hardship since she was little. Chapter 11. It was as if a basin of cold water had been poured over my head, so cold that even my teeth were chattering. Elena was heaven's favored daughter, so he could not bear to let her suffer. But I had walked out of a small mountain village. Because I was used to suffering, I could endure even more suffering. But had Joel gotten something wrong? Who exactly was his fiancée? In his proposal vows, it was written clearly and plainly, I am willing to spend the rest of my life cherishing you. Was this what he called cherishing me? I was so hurt that I had reached the extreme, but I still lifted my face and refused to show Joel even the slightest bit of pitifulness. I looked at Joel and said hoarsely, Give me Elena's number. Joel trembled, not understanding. What are you trying to do? I took several deep breaths to calm myself. I want to teach her a lesson. In business, there is no closeness or distance, and there absolutely cannot be gains without work. The one order that client placed with her can count as me taking pity on her because she's on the verge of bankruptcy. But from now on, who he is willing to work with, between me and her, will depend on our own abilities. I stood there, silent, waiting. I wanted to get a definite result from his mouth. Did he want to draw a clear line with his white moonlight? Or did he want to completely make peace with me? My cheeks were burning hot, yet cold sweat seeped out along my back. In that torment of alternating cold and heat, Joel finally spoke. Eva, I'll give you an explanation. How about this? I'll give you one of the clients in my hands as compensation, okay? A deep chill rose from the depths of my heart. Strand by strand, I looked at Joel and, unexpectedly, had nothing to say. In these years, the company's growth momentum had been fierce. The volume of business between Joel and me was almost 3 parts mine and 7 parts his. If he allocated a client to me, it would become 4-6. I knew this was not the result I wanted, but I could accept it. If I had lost in love, then at the very least, I had to get real money and solid assets. Using money to measure heartbreak sounded pathetic, but what was even more pathetic was that I suddenly realized something that chilled me to the bone even more. Aside from me, the company had 2 other senior salespeople, yet Joel had not taken resources from their hands. The reason he had taken from mine was nothing more than one thing. We were about to get married, so he believed that what was mine was his. I would obediently accept his arrangements, because we were about to get married. Chapter 12. After realizing this, my fingers turned ice cold, and an unbearable sour bitterness rose in my mouth. Joel, you clearly said with your own mouth that meeting me was the luckiest thing in your life. Then why did you personally crush the beautiful memories between us? I knew Joel definitely liked me, at least, in the years before Elena returned to the country. He loved me, perhaps in Joel's heart. Ordinary Eva also had the confidence to be mentioned in the same breath as Elena. But why should I compare? Love should not be compared. What I needed was not to defeat another woman in Joel's heart. Rather, there should not be the slightest trace of her in his heart at all. In the 4th year of being Joel's business partner, and the 3rd year of being in love with him, without even digging deeper into why he still favored Elena, I had already realized that I should leave him. I stood frozen in place, watching Joel's mouth open and close. He was talking, but I felt as if his voice was unusually distant. It seemed he had selected several high-quality clients and said he would give them to me. I calmly looked at Joel's handsome profile. I accept this compensation. That face was still very good-looking, but it could no longer move me in the slightest. Of course, I could slap him across the face and break up with him directly, but I could not act rashly. Joel's career and mine were already tied together, and he was the company's legal representative. If I left recklessly without making any arrangements, losses would be inevitable. I needed to stay calm and do something more to ensure that my own interests would not be harmed. That way, when the moment truly came for me to turn around and leave him, my heart would remain whole, and so would my assets. I used all my strength to smile at Joel. All right, your clients, I'll maintain them well. Oh, and there's one more thing. Since we're at it, let's handle it too. Your sister Lily, how about we recruit her into the company? For so many years, I had been the partner Joel trusted most, and he would listen to all of my suggestions. In the past, Joel's mother had repeatedly whispered in his ear, wanting Lily to work under her older brother. The idea was basically, when one person rises to success, even the chickens and dogs around them ascend to heaven. But every time, I firmly persuaded him to hold his ground. Let's not even talk about how your sister is poor at thinking, lazy, and fond of comfort. Once you open the door to nepotism, won't other relatives and friends also demand a share? When the company is thrown into chaos, how will you negotiate business or manage performance? I had done it for Joel's good, and because of that, Lily had never liked me. Now, I suddenly accepted Lily for only one reason. I had already foreseen that Lily would cause trouble, and I needed her to cause as much trouble as possible. Only then would I have enough excuses to own a company that belonged solely to me. Chapter 13. Lily truly did not disappoint me. On her very first day joining the finance department, she offended 2 senior employees. On the 3rd day, she miscalculated the performance bonuses of more than a dozen employees, stirring up complaints everywhere. Later, relying on her status as the boss's younger sister, she even began to pick on me. When my assistant went to get expenses reimbursed, Lily made things difficult in every possible way. When my salespeople went to request payments, she repeatedly delayed them. With my tacit permission, my subordinates argued with her 4 times in 3 days. And each time, the matter was brought before Joel. It left him caught in the middle. As it happened, the company had a need for business expansion, so I rightfully proposed to Joel that the company could be split into 2. Joel was somewhat hesitant. However, 4 or 5 salespeople all complained to him, saying they were unwilling to work with his sister, and he had only roughly told Lily to restrain herself a little when his mother immediately heard the news and came over, telling him, as her older brother, to take better care of his sister. In the end, Joel compromised helplessly. Eva, take a portion of the employees and move to the office next door. They'll only be 2 companies in name, but the business will still be handled together. I smiled and agreed. Got it. But that was a lie. I would not allow my love to be tainted, nor would I allow the performance I had created with my own hands to be touched. I only wanted to take back what I deserved. But to my surprise, apart from the subordinates I had personally trained, several capable employees also proposed coming with me. They said somewhat embarrassedly, "Eva, working with you feels freer." After a little thought, I understood what they meant. In the past, Joel and I had both been good bosses liked by the employees. Now that he was disliked, Lily deserved no small amount of credit. I smiled and looked at everyone. All right, I promise that all the benefits from the original company will remain unchanged. 1 person brought 2, 2 brought 3, and in an instant, half the company's staff was gone. I simply rented an office in another office building nearby, several minutes walk away from Joel's company. On the day we were busy moving, my assistant held up a framed photo and asked me, "Why aren't you taking this with you?" She was talking about a photo of Joel and me. It had been taken at the old company site during the first year of our relationship. Back then, we had loved each other so sincerely. Even the way we looked at each other had been shining. But this relationship was destined to end in regret. I took the photo out and threw it into the trash can. No need to take it. I'll only take the things I think are important. The company had been split, and the employees had been taken away by me. Joel seemed to sense that something was wrong, but he had no time to care. During the days when I was moving, he also seemed very busy, and I could barely see him at the company. Joel's assistant and I had a decent personal relationship, so I casually asked what Joel had been doing recently. The assistant immediately opened up. It seems he's trying to build connections for that Elena from last time, helping her make a big deal happen. Eva, why is Joel so invested in someone else's business? Recently, he hasn't been coming to the company much. He's handed both big and small matters over to that sister of his. But she doesn't understand anything. 2 orders were snatched away by competitors, and even I feel jealous watching it. Ah, I knew it. Joel was considered quite cautious. How could he have turned a blind eye to my abnormalities? So it turned out that his mind was full of repaying that favor. They say there is a kind of love called sharing hardship and sweetness together. Joel and I had built a business hand in hand for 4 years and endured all the hardship. It turned out that the sweet part belonged to his ex-girlfriend. I suddenly found it funny. So bitter it was funny. Sure enough, I was not smart enough. I had actually spent a full 4 years before recognizing this fact. But even now, it was not too late. I would just treat it as my former self having made a mistake. Life was so long. Who did not make a few ridiculous mistakes? Making a mistake was not frightening. As long as you could correct it in time, that was enough. Chapter 14. I had liked him for 4 years. The feeling had already seeped into my bones and become a habit. When I saw industry-related news, I would still subconsciously want to share it with Joel. When I passed by a certain restaurant, I would still think of the time he and I had met there. Then, I would sigh with melancholy. Oh, so I had already decided to break up with him. Liking someone required accumulation day by day. Once you no longer liked them, cutting away your attachment to them also required a lot of time. This process of diminishing affection was a little painful. It was like using a blunt knife to cut into yourself. But what comforted me was that after several weeks, the pain occurred less and less often. When I was certain that my heart had become calm and without ripples, I sorted through the clients in my hands, making sure their cooperation with me was solid. Then I spoke with my employees one by one, painting them a pie that would definitely be fulfilled. After confirming that everything in my company was operating normally and would not be affected by my breakup with Joel, I dialed Joel's number. He seemed very busy on his end. The background noise was chaotic, and his tone carried anxiety. Eva, I'm busy. I'll call you back later. Tears were almost about to flow down, but I still straightened my back as much as possible, even though I knew perfectly well that he could not see it. I said lightly, I'll only take half a minute. He sighed, as if it was very difficult for him to spare me the time. Go ahead, Joel. Let's break up. There was a pause of several seconds. Joel asked me in a low voice, Eva, are you angry with me? Angry that I've been neglecting you recently? Don't worry, once I'm done with this busy period, I'll make it up to you properly. There was actually a hint of trying to please me in his tone, according to the understanding and considerate persona I had always maintained. Now that Joel had offered me a way down, I should have quickly taken it, but I only shook my head. No, you'll never be done being busy. Today, you're busy with Elena's career. Tomorrow, you'll be busy with her lifelong affairs. I won't add to your chaos. And by the way, I know the necklace you gave me is from Elena's favorite brand. I don't like its design, so I'll return it to you together with the ring. Also, that day in the hospital, I heard you talking to yourself. Since you miss her so much, why waste vows on me? People who squander sincerity will face retribution. Aren't you afraid? Joel's breathing was very heavy, but aside from calling my name, Eva, he unexpectedly could not say anything else. Perhaps it was the last trace of attachment I had for him that kept me from hanging up immediately. And at that moment, I heard someone urging Joel, hurry over! The contract is about to be signed. It was Elena's voice, so he hurriedly said, Eva, wait for me to explain, and hung up. When I was proposing a breakup to him, he still had to consider Elena's contract first. He really was very considerate. Could he be considered the best ex-boyfriend in history? Subconsciously, I clenched my hand into a fist, so tightly that my nails dug into my flesh. It hurt badly. I warned myself that since my hand hurt, my heart should stop hurting. I should not be sad over a man who was not worth it. If he wanted to favor Elena, let him. Elena had been standing on the mountaintop since birth, so she was admired by others. But I had climbed from the bottom of the valley to the foot of the mountain, then from the foot of the mountain to halfway up. I was also very impressive. One by one, I opened the apps on my phone and blocked every one of Joel's contact methods. Once, being able to say even one more sentence to him had made me happy. Now, seeing his name only made me feel bored. Chapter 15. I originally thought that after drinking, my face would be swollen the next day, but unexpectedly, I looked full of energy. That day, it was as if good luck had descended upon me. A stingy client, for the first time ever, gave me a large order. The profit at the end of the month doubled compared to usual. Even the lottery ticket I casually bought won a prize. It was in the midst of this refreshing clarity that I saw Joel. He was waiting at the entrance of the company and was being stopped by the young receptionist. His tone was somewhat unpleasant. I'm Eva's fiancé, and this company was originally split off from mine. Why can't I go in? The young receptionist widened her eyes. But Eva said you two have already broken up. And besides, your name isn't in the business registration records at all. This isn't your company, so I can't let you in. I walked over and separated the two of them. I smiled at the young receptionist and praised her for doing a good job. Then I turned to look at Joel. Joel, if you have anything to say, you can have your secretary pass it along. Since yesterday, you and I are no longer in a relationship where we can visit each other without an appointment. Joel looked somewhat anxious. Eva, I know you misunderstood. It was my fault, but I have my reasons. Wait for me for 1 month. No, half a month. I will definitely give you a reasonable explanation. Our 4 years of feelings, there's no way I can just say I don't want them anymore. He indeed should apologize, but I would not accept it. Even if hearing his apology would make my heart feel a little better. I hardened my heart. Don't come looking for me again. You should know me very well. Decisions I've made never change. Joel's eyes narrowed slightly, and the emotions in them were dim and unclear. He suddenly reached out and grabbed my wrist, as if he had made up his mind. Fine, I'll tell you, Elena and I really aren't what you think. It seemed this hidden reason was truly difficult. So difficult that even Joel could not say it. I raised an eyebrow and smiled brightly. Why go through the trouble of weaving an excuse? I don't care about anything between you and her. Because, Joel, I no longer want to love you. Joel stared at me, his Adam's apple moving, the light in his eyes darkening again and again. Through gritted teeth, he said, Eva, why do you have to be so harsh? To tell you the truth, my university tuition was sponsored by Elena's family business. If not for that money, I wouldn't even have been able to attend university. My life would have been ruined. Now that their business is not doing well, how can I just stand by and watch it decline? You were also a poor student, and you were also sponsored by others. After graduation, during holidays, you would send gifts to the teacher who sponsored you, so you should understand me even more. My heart suddenly sank. I truly had never thought that Joel and Elena had such a connection. Her family had helped him during the most difficult years of his life, and when Elena's family was at its most difficult, he was repaying that help, giving and receiving in return. Indeed, it sounded like a beautiful love fairy tale. I smiled. If there is a debt of gratitude, of course you can repay it. I never stopped you from repaying your kindness. I wish you and Elena a reunion after separation and a complete, perfect life. Isn't that understanding enough? My tone already carried 3 parts mockery. When it comes to repaying kindness, it can never escape the old trope of pledging oneself in return. So don't be embarrassed. Without me, you'll be able to fully show your abilities. Joel did not speak. He only looked at me. There were shimmering tears in his eyes. I really did not know what he was so sad about. After a long while, he finally said, I don't love her. You will understand. I do not love her. Eva, I will prove it to you. Chapter 16. Joel's tone was very deep. I did not know whether he was saying it for me to hear, or for himself. I hoped it was the latter, because if it was the former, I would feel that he was questioning my intelligence. Joel kept insisting that he did not love Elena, but for the sake of reviving her family business, he could run around busily, even throwing behind the career he had always valued most. If this was how he defined not loving, then I could only say he was truly one of a kind. I was willing to let everyone admire him with me. This city was truly very large. If one deliberately avoided seeing someone, it was genuinely hard to run into them. But I still heard news about Joel, or perhaps it could be called news about Elena. That day, when I had just walked out of the parking lot on my way to work, I saw people gathered in front of Joel's company. At the front was a slender woman with black hair draped over her shoulders. It was Elena, whom I had not seen for many days. She had long lost the elegance and composure she had when I first met her. At this moment, she was tightly pulling Joel's sleeve, crying so beautifully that it looked like pear blossoms in the rain. Such a huge thing happened to me. Why did you ignore me completely? After all these years of feelings between us, are you really just going to watch me die without saving me? You were clearly always taking care of me. How can you suddenly say you won't care anymore? From the sound of it, there seemed to be gossip. Curious. I asked a former colleague standing nearby and watching. What happened? They had a decent personal relationship with me, so they filled me in all at once. Elena got into trouble. She recently signed a huge overseas order, but the buyer turned out to be a scam company. After her family business shipped the goods, the other party said they had financial difficulties and refused to pay. When pressed further, they simply put the company directly into bankruptcy liquidation. Elena asked someone to investigate, and only then did she discover that this company had a lot of bad credit records. This is absolutely trade fraud. She must be completely dumbfounded now. The company was already having difficulty with cash flow, and now there probably isn't a single cent left in the account. I listened and frowned repeatedly. For such a large transaction, shouldn't she have asked around more about the buyer's background before signing the contract? How could she just sign it so carelessly? But her failure in signing a contract, what does that have to do with Joel? Several people looked at one another. Only at the end did someone say, because Joel had been helping her all along, so she became confident and thought she could do it too. Elena had indeed been too eager for quick success. She had taken a client from my hands and, with Joel's repeated help, gained quite a lot of profit. Because of that, she became complacent, thinking that doing business was effortless. That was why she had been tricked. She did not know that the business world was like a battlefield. How could a complete beginner possibly outplay scammers with malicious intentions? Elena had nearly lost her entire family fortune. Because of this, she even blamed Joel, who had given her fish. To be honest, it was somewhat absurd. Even Joel frowned repeatedly. He angrily retorted, "For you, I lost my girlfriend. I also left the company's business alone and made a complete mess of things. Elena, I've already helped you a lot. You can't come to me endlessly." One wanted to leave. The other refused to let him go. Neither side would give in. Elena suddenly raised her voice. "Don't think I don't know what you're planning. Do you think becoming my family's son-in-law is that easy? Joel, I'm telling you, if you don't help me now, you will never be able to marry me." Joel's face turned deathly pale, and through gritted teeth, he said, "Who wants to be your family's son-in-law? I clearly had Eva. She is 1,000 times, 10,000 times better than you." Elena sneered. "She's better than me? What a joke! If she's really better than me, why did you break up with her? Are you blind?" When she reached this point, tears suddenly streamed down her face, and her voice softened several degrees. "Help me, Joel. Just help me one more time. Didn't you once say it? Meeting me was the luckiest thing in your life." In that instant, I only felt my chest clog, and my entire body turned cold, because I remembered that several months earlier, Joel had faced Patricia's camera and said, "Meeting Eva was the luckiest thing in my life." Back then, I had been moved to tears by that sentence, but it turned out that before me, he had already been lucky once. The first time, he met Elena, who helped him complete his studies. The second time, he met me, who helped him expand his career. Originally, he had the chance to become even luckier, marry me, and then we would continue running the company better together. In the end, he had been greedy. He wanted to take advantage of the misfortune that had befallen Elena's family to climb up through Elena, so that one day, when her family turned disaster into fortune, he would be the one with great merit. The idea was quite good. I wished him success, but I knew that people who indulged in wild fantasies would not succeed. I gave a bland little sneer, too lazy to continue watching this farce, and turned to leave. However, what I did not expect was that a few days later, the last few capable employees under Joel all came to find me together. "Eva, can you let us come work for you?" Chapter 17. I was very surprised. "I remember all of your performances were pretty good. Why doesn't Joel want you anymore?" They all sighed one after another and explained the reason. Joel had actually been tough enough not to help Elena fill that financial hole. But Elena was even tougher than him. She went to his company and caused trouble 3 times a day, until he lost all temper and found every possible way to gather another sum of money to lend her for cash flow. But this action completely enraged Lily. She had long regarded her brother's company as something that belonged to her. In the past, when I managed the company and refused to let her touch it, she had many complaints. After I left, she finally got a taste of holding power, only to have Elena appear again, coming every few days to ask for money. Lily went all the way and simply embezzled a rather large sum from the company accounts. Joel was so furious that it nearly made him collapse. However, his mother threatened him with death and forbade him from calling the police. He could only swallow his broken teeth along with the blood. But when he planned to properly develop the company again, he discovered that there were hardly any capable employees left under him. The ones who remained were either slippery veterans who cheated whenever they could, or relatives Lily had recruited while she had the chance. Apart from eating, drinking, and having fun, they were good at nothing. After reflecting on the pain, Joel was also able to bend when necessary. He personally came to me, sincerely asking for my forgiveness. "Eva, I was wrong. I shouldn't have carelessly shown kindness and helped Elena clean up her mess. I've thought it through. You are the one I should spend the rest of my life with. Thank you for considering our past and taking in the employees who resigned from my side. I know I'm a total mess right now, and you definitely don't want to see me, so I'll take these employees back first. Once I pull myself together again, I'll come apologize to you properly, okay?" He looked at me almost pleadingly, and I looked at him calmly. At that moment, many emotions flashed through my heart: contempt, disdain, amusement, and pity. Pity for his delusional thinking. I had said it long ago. In business, there was no closeness or distance, and there absolutely could not be gains without work. Elena did not understand this principle, but how could Joel not understand either? I waved over all the employees and had them stand in front of Joel one by one, smiling. I said to them, "Joel is eager for talent, so I'll give him this respect. If any of you want to go back with him, take one step forward. I won't stop you." But there was only silence. After half a minute, among more than a dozen people, someone finally took a step forward. Joel licked his lips, seeming very expectant, but that person only asked timidly, "Joel, your sister still owes me a reimbursement. When will it be paid?" Joel froze, his face turned ashen, and his whole body trembled. I waved for everyone to go back to work, then looked at Joel politely. "Joel, none of them are willing to go with you, so you should go back." Joel suddenly reached out and unwillingly grabbed my wrist, his eyes like those of a trapped beast. "Eva, you called them over because you wanted to humiliate me, didn't you? You've humiliated me now. Has your anger disappeared?" I only wanted to repay Elena, but instead she bit me back. "I'm pitiful too. Can you help me once, for the sake of our 4 years together? I truly, genuinely loved you. You are the one who truly resonates with my soul." For years of feelings had indeed been sincere, but the one who first betrayed them, wasn't it him? He was the one who first handed over the business I had fought for to someone else. He was the one who used the name of repaying kindness to show every tenderness to his ex-girlfriend. I pulled my hand out of his grip, shaking my head as I sighed. "You can't fool me anymore, Joel. You thought that although Elena's family hasn't been doing well recently, their foundation is still there, and their connections still remain. As long as they survive this difficulty, they will definitely be able to restore their former glory. You helped Elena only because you were speculating. You were counting on helping her in her time of difficulty so she would be grateful to you. Maybe in the future, she might even show mercy and marry you, allowing you to leap up an entire social class. She was counting on you to clear the obstacles for her so her path would be smooth from then on. It was originally a good deal where each of you took what you needed. How did the two of you still manage to mess it up? And only now do you think of turning back to find me, Joel. In your heart, do I look that generous? Before, perhaps I would have been sensitive, insecure, and secretly wondered whether I was inferior to Elena. But at this moment, all I felt was release. When Joel and I came to this city, we were both penniless and without anything. As a young woman, the temptations I encountered were only more than Joel's. It was not that my heart had never wavered, but I had still firmly chosen to believe in Joel, and I had also firmly chosen to believe in myself. During the years we walked side by side, as long as he was beside me, I could throw myself forward without hesitation and give everything I had. But I had never expected that while I had never wavered, he had hesitated. Even without Elena, there would have been someone else. Joel said he did not love Elena. That might actually have been the truth, because what he loved was her wealth and status. After being exposed by me, Joel's eyes turned scarlet, and he was almost angry from shame. Was I wrong? Was I wrong to want something more stable? You and I are both children from ordinary families. We have no foundation and no connections. We have to fight with everything we have just to survive in a big city. It's too exhausting. So exhausting I can't breathe. But she was born living in the clouds. Even if I work hard for my entire life, I may never reach the height she had the moment she was born. So I wanted to take a gamble. What's wrong with that? I wanted to struggle for a few decades less. What's wrong with that? Do you know who her father and uncle are? They really are powerful. They merely stumbled for a moment, but making a comeback is only a matter of time. This was the first time I had seen Joel so hoarse from shouting. He looked defeated and aggrieved. It seemed as if he truly regretted it, but that could not move me. Today, he shed tears in front of me only because he resented himself for betting on the wrong card. He had originally thought he had a chance to rise effortlessly into success, with both a noble wife and a beautiful mistress. But he had never expected that Elena was someone who could not be propped up. And those so-called hiding one's strength and biding one's time were actually nothing more than a fig leaf. He had expected even less that I would quietly take his resources and employees for my own use, developing my career until it flourished. Elena called him blind. He really was blind. I had no time to keep entangling myself with someone blind. I pointed toward the company's front door and made a pleased gesture. Goodbye. I watched Joel's somewhat panicked departing figure for a long time. Actually, I still felt regret in my heart, because I had once imagined so sincerely that he and I would stand hand in hand at a higher place together. But this was where it ended. Although we had similar backgrounds, although we had once worked hand in hand for 4 years, although we had once made shared promises, he and I were ultimately different. My future would only be held in my own hands. I let out a long sigh and said to myself, Eva, don't be afraid. From now on, you have to walk the road ahead alone again. May flowers accompany you all along the way.